There have long been arguments about randomness in games. Generally, we all agree that if randomness is extreme enough, it becomes a bad thing. For example, let's propose coin flip chess, where we play a match of chess, and then after the match is over, we flip a coin, and if it comes up tails, we reverse who won. I think we'd have something like universal hatred for this variant. Some might express their dissatisfaction by saying that that's just too random. But I think the problem isn't that the coin flip is too random, it's that the coin flip lacks meaning. In fact, most people would probably ignore the result of the coin flip when talking about who won a game of coin flip chess. They just say whoever captured the king is the person who won, or whoever checkmated the other person. They would ignore the coin flip aspect. During the play of a game, your choices build meaning into play. As we talked about back in episode 3 of the first season, when you're playing a game, you look at the current state, compare it to your internal model, which is a loose mental simulation of the rule set, and you make a decision based on predictions drawn from that model. Every move you make expresses something about your model of the system. Crucially, this model is not, as many of us would like to believe, some perfectly accurate or objective record. Our model works more like the way someone retells a story of something that they experienced. Of the few details that are actually included, some are given more or less emphasis. So in this way, the process of making our internal model is a creative act of molding interpretations together into a coherent picture of a rule set, even if most of this happens subconsciously. This is part of why it's so hard to get good at strategy games, but it's also arguably why strategy games are so cool. You're expressing something about you through your interpretation of this system. When we engage in a strategy game, we're holding up our expressionist paintings of a system and shining light through them in the form of wins and losses. We then modify and remix this painting, which you could call learning, but you could also call it growing. But wins and losses only cause that growth if they're meaningful wins and losses. So where do they get that meaning from? Each move that you make sort of imbues the game component or the game state with some of your intention. As you're moving a piece around a board, you're developing a connection with this piece and associating it with yourself and what you're striving for. Within a sequence of deterministic actions, you build meaning. First, you moved here. Then, you moved there. Randomness, on the other hand, can almost be defined as an anti-meaningful event. In the case of a typical turn-based tactical game, if someone asks you why you moved to a particular tile, you can give some kind of explanation to them. You can tell them some sort of story. However, if you attack and you miss, you can't give them any insight as to why your attack missed other than, well, that's just how the dice rolled. Now, of course, in every story, there is always some event or events that are outside of the character's control. But in storytelling and in game design, you must always make sure that there is a coherence to those random events, so that they can be built into our little castle of meaning. This is one reason why I've pushed for input randomness and uniform randomness. It's to preserve that general shape of that sandcastle of meaning that you've been building. It's to make sure that your castle doesn't end up looking more like a vaguely castle-shaped lump that has been crushed by waves of randomness.